What was that? You can see how many people are online. How many were there yesterday? That's excellent. That's great. I love that. Yeah. Is Henry on the background yet? Oh. What's interesting is no one's on the back end on this one.
Right, because that's the speaker one.
This is I always, but I let them in on this one. Yeah.
I think extension.
We have the extension cord. I just don't know how to plug it in. Look at the power. morning, Jim. Alrighty. May I?
So we have a little bit. This isn't logged in as it's logged in as a speaker, not a moderator, so I'm not able to let people in and out on this one. How do we log in as a moderator? Thank you, and it's so they can hear.
Logging in. As moderator.
Just don't have everyone. Yeah, we're ready.
I did. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Radically Rural, our second day, our third session on the arts track. It's such a delight to have you all here today. My name's Jess Gelter. I'm the director of an organization called Arts Alive, and we're partners in organizing this Radically Rural Summit. We're so grateful to the Sentinel and to the Hannah Grimes Center, who are the lead organizers and dreamers that made this whole big, exciting thing happen. So some logistical things. Bathrooms in this space, through that door. Also, you can find them downstairs. Just follow the signs. If you have any general questions, there's a hub down on Main Street at the Hannah Grimes Marketplace, 42 Main Street. They can help you find public restrooms in town or tell you what's a great place to eat lunch or anything like that that you need. For those of you guys that are online, you can participate in the session chat, and we hope you have some patience with us because we find occasionally the timing of things happening live and the timing of things happening online don't always match up. So patience and grace as we try this new hybrid version of events. For folks in the room, you can join the session through the Socio app on your phone if you would like to participate in the chat and not feel like you're missing out on some exciting conversations. So thank you all for your patience. Folks online, please take the chance now to introduce yourselves, where you're from, your location, your organization, your pronouns if you like. Folks in the room, take a second to make actual eye contact with other human beings. It's so wonderful that we can do this in 3D. Hi and welcome. All right. So the way I've been starting these is by offering a land acknowledgement. So here's today's acknowledgement. Each of us conducts our business on lands that have been and still are traditional homelands of Indigenous peoples. In our chat, I will eventually place a link to a map which shows the native lands and native communities that overlap currently named places across the United States. That way you can look up your location and find what community, what Indigenous peoples are also in your community. So the church I'm streaming to you from is in Endakina. It's the traditional homeland of the Pennacook tribe of the Abenaki people, which is part of the Wabanaki Confederacy of yesterday and today. I'm so grateful to the Alnabak, the people who have stewarded Endakina, its land and its waterways, through its many changes. There are legacies of displacement, of migration and settlement that bring us to where we are today. So this session's acknowledgement invites you to better understand the truths about who we are and how we got here. And in doing so, to know deeply what we mean when we create change in a place and a community. So from here, we're going to launch into talking about creative placemaking so we can learn together and move forward together with respect and build a brighter future. Today, we have a wonderful moderator and speaker, Erin Miley, who is gonna share some information and ideas from her creative placemaking practice. And then we're gonna have 4 presenters, all from the virtual world, who are gonna tell stories about creative projects that they've worked on. And then we'll have a chance to have a conversation and ask some questions. So that's what today's session is going to look like. So I would like to bring up Erin. And I'm going to let her introduce herself because she is just an amazing person.
Thanks, Jess. I really want to thank you for all the work you've done, Jess, to make this possible, this whole track possible. Welcome, those of you here in attendance and those of you online. I want to also honor the land that I currently live on. So my name is Erin Miley O'Keefe. I am a settler on the ancestral land and current lands of the Sokoki Band of the Abenaki people, also pronounced Abenaki. I am grateful to their stewardship and how they lead me to a deeper connection with the lands, waters, plants, and animals of the place where I currently live. This place is currently known as Brattleboro, Vermont. Through my relationships and learnings with Abenaki people, I continue to stay connected to my own elders and ancestors far away in Hawaii, or otherwise known as Hawaii. I was born and raised in Hawaii. My first 2 names, one is my Anglo name and one is my Hawaiian name, which kind of demonstrates the 2 parts of me. My mom was part Native Hawaiian and my dad was Swedish German. So I honor my ancestors by living in a different place here in the Northeast, but by connecting to the ancestors and the culture of this place. I also want to honor my ancestors, my female lineage that also kind of brought me to creative placemaking. I remember the moment when I heard the term creative placemaking and I was like, wow, what is that? Like I just leaned in and then I started to kind of uncover what that term meant. And it was only coined about, I would say it's only been about 12 years. I think I might have heard it maybe 10 years ago. And it was coined by the current director of the National Endowment for the Arts. Creative placemaking, you know, you kind of have to unpack that a little bit, I think. Creative, certainly we're talking about artists, culture, and the creative economy in general. So it's a really broad, it's a broad sense of expression. And then placemaking. So I kind of think of it's like place sense making or place honoring. So there's a way to like look at that title or that term and give it a little bit more breadth to understanding because places exist. So when we're making places, it's kind of we're making sense of the place. And places get influenced by who lives there. And as we all know, we're pretty transient now as humans around the planet. So our places change and are imbued with new culture and changing culture. And even changing technology, which changes our culture, as we certainly learned in the last year and a half. So when you think of creative placemaking, it really, I want you to kind of broaden what that term means and how we can be more inclusive of our history, our present, and our future. I think that's the one thing that really needs to be focused on when we create a project is how does this project move us into the future? and take the younger generations with us, or listen to, and also really listen to them. So my business is called the Human Connection Project. That was a name that took a little while to come to, but it was really at the root of all the things that I did. I started in movement arts, was very much a somatic learner myself, and so I learned through experience. I think all of us do that first, and then some of us are a little bit more equipped with the way that we're organized to move into other kinds of learning, which are oftentimes easier in institutions of learning. I kind of stayed pretty rooted in somatic learning, so I had to do my own things to make sure that I understood what was going on. That kind of led me to understanding how I might bring somatic learning or movement arts into education and take any core curriculum and physicalize it in the body. And probably many of you know, like if you travel to a place, you're going to remember the history and the culture and the experiences and the food and the smells and all of that if you went there. If you read in a book, maybe you took away some of it. So what I'm trying to do is kind of combine those two, where there's book learning, there's experiential learning. So for instance, if we're studying anatomy, how do you both look at an anatomical drawing and understand the systems, the bones, let's say, but then also experience how someone can lead you through movement by naming those bones and how they're moving in space. So I've done that for about 25, 30 years. And through that, I learned a lot about how to develop curriculum, how to develop an experience for groups of people and for individuals, how to scaffold that learning so that it really sinks in deeply. And through that, I started to develop curriculum for communities. And that's really where a lot of this creative placemaking came out of. It's like, how do you scaffold experiences for communities so you bring them into an experience together? And the key piece that I'm missing here is really the social arts, social connection, social engagement. The social is so important. We are social creatures. So no matter what we're doing in terms of art, we're not facilitating an artistic experience necessarily that is very personal and isolated, but we're using the arts and culture to gather people together and to create like a stronger woven network of social interactions. So that's where the creative placemaking kind of like lit me up. And I went and studied. At the time, there was only one program in creative placemaking, and I immersed myself in that. And then out of that, I have to honor my mom and my grandmother, who both were culture holders, as well as my uncles in Hawaii. And they organized all kinds of creative temple creative placemaking projects in Hawaii to elevate the culture at a time when it had kind of gone underground. So I kind of feel like I was kind of steeped in it from a little kid. So I wanted to give you a few examples of some of the things that I've been doing recently. And I think they're gonna bring you to my website. So 3 examples. The first one is kind of a low investment, high iteration, so lots of trying things out, which I really encourage in communities. Try them out. Low investment, see what sticks, see what you learn, gather lots of different kinds of people and organizations and talents, and just give it a try. That's the first one. The second one was a pandemic pivot. And the third project I'm going to briefly describe is one that has potential long-term impact on our community. So the first one is Artful Streets. And I'm just realizing that, hold on one second, I'm going to bring it up on my computer since I can't see what you guys see. There we go. So as you can see there, it's arts and social engagement. So Artful Streets came out of our Downtown Brattleboro Alliance wanting to take over our gallery walk. Our gallery walk was a monthly event. It was the only time our whole community of Brattleboro really came out in the streets. And the piece that I wanted to hold was, how do we create greater spatial equity? How do we invite people that don't have brick and mortar in our downtown, that don't have that presence? How do we invite them to our downtown? This is an opportunity. And if Gallery Walk is our one event that we do on a monthly basis, it really needs to have space and invitation for everyone. And that includes audiences and participation. So arts and social engagement, Artful Street centers artists in the designing of safe, vibrant, and creative solutions to enhance and encourage social and commercial activity in our downtowns and public spaces. It also amplifies less heard voices. So the opportunity. So in creative placemaking, there's always an opportunity. The opportunity were these little interstitial spaces that were really cool, but weren't being activated. You know, there might be an empty lot, a parking space that isn't used. I'm sure you guys can think of lots of places in your town that you think, oh, that's a really cool place. If only there were some lights, a stage, and a mic, or whatever. What are the like simple ingredients you could add to that in order to activate it? So Gallery Walk happens once a month, as I said, from 5 to 8. And then I designed between 4 and 6 stations. And I invited down various organizations and businesses and artists to come and create a station that involved participatory art. I'm going to give you one example. Last month, each month I have a theme, and the theme was Technicolor Town. Kind of kept the themes kind of open so that we could get imaginative. And in the one that kind of really hit it out of the park, I think this time, is we have this tunnel. And it's a tunnel that was used to go to a parking lot. And it's been closed off, and it's just sitting there, and it's just a great venue. So somehow I hatched this idea of having the tunnel of Technicolor transformation. Now, there's a lot in a title, right? That was a big invitation. I worked with a local woman who has a school for style. It's called the Style School. And I also worked with a local hair salon. I then went out to our secondhand stores and I asked them to donate various accessories. Nothing base layer, just accessories. And then we decorated the tunnel and had a portal that you come out of. So you enter in one side and you come out the other side. And a little bit like a pit crew, you go in, you sit down in a chair, and they accessorize you. You get to keep the accessories, by the way, which is really awesome. Then you go and you sit in a chair and you get your hair done up in some way you might not want, or might not have thought you wanted, but nothing you've ever done before. And you get your hair done. And it was pretty amazing. Then you walk through this portal. We had kind of this shimmery kind of entrance piece, and you walk out, and I had kids draw a rainbow runway in chalk on the ground. And then we have an organization called Queer Dance Party, and they had 2 MCs that then would coach, encourage, and critique you as you walk down the runway. And then we had photographers and paparazzis. It was really fun. And it got so many people involved. It activated conversation. People walked around and was like, oh, wow, did you get that at the Tunnel of Technicolor Transformation? And it was relatively easy, other than maybe transforming the tunnel with lots of lights and such. That involved a ladder. But other than that, it was really, really low investment. Just some time, lots of volunteers. So that's an example of like really quick sort of tactical urbanism is sometimes what it's called. So you can explore some of the other stations and activities in there. Please explore them and use them. So the next example I wanted to say was talk about was a pandemic pivot. So I imagine a lot of you have had some kind of pandemic pivot. Maybe in my case, I received funds for a project that just couldn't happen because it involved gathering a large group of people together. So a lot of my work just disappeared, which was an opportunity again, right? An opportunity to go, okay, well, what can I do? So, and then also looking at the needs. So I saw that a lot of artists like myself were out of work, and that were visual artists, but also musical artists. And I thought, well, how can I get musical artists involved? Visual artists. I looked at the downtown was having a hard time drawing people back down and letting, even signaling that they were open, and then signaling what was expected as we saw things change around the requirements of being able to go inside. So I came up with this project called Handy Stations. I was working with two collaborators on that initially, and then brought in others. So I worked with, in the end, I worked with a dear friend of mine who is an incredible thinker around technology. We formed a class for kids, for one kid and one parent to come online for a free class in coding for industrial design. And we designed a motion censored hand sanitizing dispenser that dispensed original music by local musical artists that were on a revolving track. So they usually gave us like between 3 and 6. So you were kind of surprised at what was going to happen. The backdrop was a piece of artwork, and all of it was themed around a local nonprofit that doesn't have a lot of visibility in our downtown, but have been doing really, really good work behind the scenes. So we're amplifying that group, that organization. We're amplifying our artists that are out of work right now. So hopefully that led people to them. We're signaling that we have businesses open because these things are carts that get wheeled out in front of businesses. And we're supporting those businesses. And that was all fundraised through grants, which was really fun. So that's kind of one of those, another project which required funds, but then everyone and all the artists got paid, and the businesses got support without having to pay for these units. And then the last one really quickly is called Waterways. It's the one project that was paused during the pandemic and is now being brought up again. It's a piece of land that was used for public housing in a floodplain. And so I drew on my connections with an Abenaki elder, Judy Dow, to talk about how that land would have been used by the Indigenous people of the area. And so we've started to work on how we can educate the kids in a school right across the street about Indigenous land use and knowledge, understanding how to read the land. Those buildings have since been taken down because of Hurricane Irene, and partnering with the Brattleboro Housing Partnerships, I'm doing the programmatic side of things, of engaging the community in understanding why what happened there, what Indigenous people can teach us about what should happen there, and then what, as a community, we want to do with that land moving forward. So honoring past, present, and future. And you can read more about that. So that's a long-term project that is more physical in nature. So that is really what I want to talk about, just to introduce this topic. We have 4 presenters today. We're really, really grateful, all from rural communities, showing very, relatively accessible projects. So I'm going to take my computer and myself so that I can see them now. I'm going to come sit down. And now I get to see you guys. Hey, hi, good morning. All right, well, to start,
Good morning.
I'd love you each to introduce yourselves, your name, where you are, your pronouns, which I neglected to say, she, her, please, thank you. And also, I'd like you to share your superpower, which also might be your liability. So I'll demonstrate that. So my superpower is I'm dyslexic, which means that I can see really curious, interesting, and often fruitful connections between disparate things, concepts, objects. So I'm going to pass this to you guys. Now, I just want to give everyone a heads up that we have Annika and Steve running our tech. Thank you to them. Yeah, applause, please. They are pioneering this like live and virtual mashup, which means they're long delays. And I was fortunate enough to listen to some presentations yesterday, and I understand that there are longer delays than maybe we thought. So I'm going to pass it off to our virtual world. And if you wouldn't mind going in this order, you can, let's start with Carla and continue with Henry, Dan, and Lise. Take it away.
Hi, and I'm Carla Borden, and I'm coming to you from Gideon, Missouri, which is in the Boot Hill of Missouri in the southeast corner in Mississippi Delta region. My pronouns are she and her, and my superpower would have to be adopting abandoned buildings. I'm the foster mother of all abandoned buildings. So, thank you.
Oh, hello. I'm Henry, and I'm coming to you today from Stockton, Illinois, the gateway to the Driftless region. And we're going to talk about the scenic art loop. My pronouns, he, him, I guess. And my superpower, I suppose, I guess it's the curse of being an artist. You see the beauty of all the scenery and stuff, but you also see every other formula that goes into making a life experience, good, bad, or otherwise, I suppose. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Roeder, and I'm coming from Alturas, California. My pronouns are he, him. And I guess my superpower would be, my wife describes me as a cloud thinker, which means like I see lots of different things and lots of different connections, but that can also be a curse because sometimes I go down rabbit holes for a long time.
Hi, my name is Lise McLaughlin. I'm coming to you from Northfield, Massachusetts. My pronouns are she and her. And my superpower is, since I'm both a poet and an engineer, being in a sort of a interdisciplinary conversation with the land. Thank you.
To all four of you for being here. Dan, I think your mic is a little low. I don't know if there's a way to get a little closer to your mouth or your mic so we can hear you.
Is this better?
Okay,
Good
great.
now?
Thank you. All right, so just a little reminder to our folks out in the virtual land, you can put your questions in the chat. And for those of you here in the room, if you're on Socio, you can also put your questions in the chat, or you can just literally raise your hand. We're gonna try to, we'll give a little bit of time to the in-house folks for questions, and then we'll switch to, or Jess, are you gonna call out the questions from the chat? Okay, great, thank you. All right, so again, we're gonna have some pauses. You can use those pauses for a little dance break or a little breath or whatever you like to do. So just know that we're going to have some space in this. And thanks again to our tech folks. So now I'd love to hear a little bit of, we'd all love to hear about your projects. So we'll go in the same order, starting with Carla.
Thank you. My project is referred to as the butterfly effect. And this is a project that was taken on by our community. And our three partners were our local women's club, who helped raise the money for our supplies, a local bank who donated the building, and a local artist who donated his time and talent to our project. And what really birthed this was our desire to include the community and really explain to them what we were trying to do as the Boot Hill Cultural and Performing Arts Center. In our region, we're actually nationally labeled as perpetual poverty. And so the closest grocery store is 20 miles away. And it has seen a lot of deterioration. The economy, agriculture is all that's available. And so when we were approached by with this abandoned building, and they said, you can have it. We don't know what you'll do with it, but you can have it. And so we thought, how can we reach the community with the idea of what we want to do to bring life back to an area that it had felt like life had left. And so so we first started with empowering what our message was going to be. Our message was to be what we want to see in the world. And what we wanted to do was inspire people that if they really wanted to see change, it had to start with them. And so we thought that needs to be our first message. That needs to be our first moment where we really tell people how we feel about things and that we think that there's power in the one. And so that was the initial conversation on what would this look like? How would we get people involved? What effect would it have on if we did this? So we took this abandoned building. We had this wall, and this wall is actually on 2 state highways. This building is, and so for rural traffic, it gets a lot of traffic. And we put it on the very far corner, so it would be the most pronounced. And prep the wall and let the artists go to work. And as you can see, we actually did it in probably the hottest part of the year in the Delta region, which is July. So temperatures were around 100 to 110 heat index, but it was a great interaction. This was the final product for our artist, which was incredible. And it was an incredible transformation. And it was so funny to watch people as these 2 days went by, because people first would drive by and look at us like, what are you doing? And then as this butterfly came to life, you could watch people change. I mean, the second day in this, they started waving at us. And then the third day people started talking to us and just people were like, this is so cool. What are you doing? And it really changed people's perspective on what could be in an abandoned place. So our artist, Joel, was our first participant in the picture. And so we put him on social media once he completed it. And he became our first butterfly for the area. And then it just morphed, just like a butterfly does. And it morphed into children and elderly, and people just got it. And it was so amazing to watch everyday people, just their whole attitude about the community, their whole attitude about what we were doing, their whole attitude about what they could do changed by one butterfly. And people talk about it. They want to interact with it. They want to get their picture made in front of it. They, you know, they're excited about the fact that things aren't always deteriorating. And though you may feel like you are in that place of deterioration, there's always life in those moments. And so this was an incredible project, one that we never anticipated to have such an effect. We just really get the message out in the beginning, and it has really transformed the community. It's transformed how they feel about what we're doing in the community and what's possible. We and it's grown our volunteers. It's grown everything about us. And you kind of sit back and go, how can one mural do that? But it honestly has. And it wouldn't be possible. I mean, a small group of people came together to try to bring this forward, but it has had impact on hundreds of people. And so that's why we wanted to share, you know, the possibility for those who are in rural communities where you don't know how you're going to make an impact. You can, and it's a lot easier than you think. So thank you for letting me share. Where's my cursor? Introduce yourself and say.
Good morning. My name is Henry, and I'm coming to you from Stockton, Illinois, in the northwest corner of the Driftless region. And we're going to talk to you about the Scenic Art Loop, a Driftless art experience produced by All River Road Talent, or ART. We are the Driftless region's exclusive art portfolio with a printed map and a website. Our intent is to create an awareness of rural artist studios, galleries, and other artists and businesses. The Scenic Art Loop is a year-long self-guided art tour targeting Galena, Illinois' 1.5 million annual visitors. It's the number one destination in Illinois for tourism outside of Chicago. Our marketing statement is see art, meet artists, touch the artist in you. Here's a visual of our map, and on the left side is the exterior, and this tells our stories and features artists and businesses, which would be like breweries, distilleries, and chef-made restaurants. The image on the right is the interior. This features the artists and their galleries. Our current map has 40 artists and businesses on it. Our target ratio is a 2-to-1 match of artists versus artists and businesses. Our vision was to create a bold, daring, first, and different year-round art experience. Our purpose is to improve visibility and economic impact for individual artists and businesses. Our philosophy is none of us is more than all of us. Our region represents the Driftless region, and let me explain what the Driftless region is. That's a portion of northwest Illinois, southwest Wisconsin, and northeast Iowa that was missed by all of the earth-flattening ice ages. So we have this very rugged, beautiful prehistoric land, and then we're fortunate enough to have Earth's fourth largest river, the Mississippi, flow right through the center of us. And we'll be expanding into Wisconsin. We're currently in Illinois and Iowa, and we'll be expanding into several counties in Wisconsin in 2022. Our goal was to create an economic impact, focusing on art, provide a connection to the artists from tourism, and I wanted it to be an exclusive connection, not a art and craft tour, an art and antique tour. I wanted to be an art only focus. Develop a marketing system for artists to use in addition to what they already have in place. Create an inclusive organization that creates collaborative marketing opportunities between artists and businesses, and just a more of a open viewpoint, and develop a synergy between all the artists of the region. What we found out in the production of our maps is the demand for quality art. There is a big demand for quality art experiences of the tourists, and there's a need for the artists just to get off main streets and get out into the country. Artists do need business and marketing education. Support and funding is available for from art organizations, but it's difficult to find. So we could use help in that area if there's any index or ways that we could be pointed in that. And then there's a need for marketing partnerships, artists and businesses. The outcomes that we've seen, we've developed a large network of rural artists, providing opportunities to participate in art shows, gallery showings, and other collaborations. We've offered tourists the opportunity to experience rural art. And then there's new connections and opportunities that are presenting them all the time. It's mind-boggling. A little bit about our organization, All River Road Talent. We're a not-for-profit organization. We developed a monthly art tour prior to this that's held on the first weekend of every month, and it continues. We educate artists on business and marketing practices and systems, and we created a marketing synergy between artists regionally and then in their little localities also. Here's a map of our journey, which started in 2016. We use a grassroots approach for operating and producing this. We're monetarily supported through memberships and some donations, and there's many, many volunteer hours involved in this undertaking. And the graphic is on our website if you would like to further dig into it. Our earned media that we achieved through doing all of this over the 4 years is we've been featured on television in front of 100,000 viewers. Big River Magazine for 2 consecutive years voted us the best art tour on the Mississippi River. Multiple tourism entities are promoting through social media. Multiple regional newspaper articles have been produced for us. Festivals and event promotions featuring art and soliciting artists' references for artist appearances are popping up all the time. Our future opportunities is we do want to expand our footprint, create a method or a system for validating the impact to the artists and the surrounding communities, and develop a mobile app. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for allowing us to participate. You can find more about us and our featured artists at scenicartloop.com. None of us is more than all of us.
Hello. That was awesome, Henry. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I am Dan Roeder again, he, him. I'm going to be presenting on a STEAM camp that we did in Cedarville, California. Population, I think, just broke 500 this last census. And so this is a picture of our campers, and we're just going to dive right in with what we produced, and then we'll kind of pick that apart. So. Cueing the video. that was just a little, the first minute of a song that the campers wrote and produced during a 2-week intensive STEAM camp. So my background is in music. I went to school actually to become a doctor, and then I realized I didn't like blood, death, or sick people. So I chose the arts, and I got a degree in vocal performance, and then went on for a degree in composition. And then after that, my heart was just kind of pulled into teaching. I got a credential as a special education teacher. And so this new position that I'm in this year with the David Z Foundation kind of wrapped all those disciplines together. And I get to kind of do them all at the same time. So our foundation was actually established in New York in 2011 under the name Rock Asylum. And about 4 years ago, one of the founders of that foundation passed away in a tragic car accident. That was David. And he was the bass player for the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. He was touring with a band called Adrenaline Mob, and they had a fatal car accident. So I've been working with his brother Paulie and a couple other folks in kind of moving our foundation into a legacy foundation that our goal is to change lives through the magic of music. And it's our belief that everybody is a musician. So whether you're whether you're a professional musician, whether you are a kindergartner who has never touched an instrument before, you should have access to music. So we subsidize music lessons and gear for students. We have scholarships for music lessons. And then we have 3 programs that we're developing. The Music Mentor program is focused on youth mental health and using songwriting as a catharsis and being able to take either just difficult feelings or traumatic events and processing them through songwriting. It's a 1-to-1 mentorship program with an artist. Our Medley Music program is actually what you just saw a little bit of. It's an academic program that focuses on just pulling apart maybe difficult concepts or giving access to new ideas through song. And we write songs with a whole class and then produce it and then make a music video. And our Modern Musician program helps young artists not be taken advantage of in the industry. That's kind of the easiest way to describe it. That's where we're really focused on building those technical skills for success and learning about business, learning about performance rights, intellectual property, and then creating a foundation of music history. We start in the 1950s with kind of the birth of the music industry, as we know it with rock and roll, and then we follow rock and roll through modern times. So this program that you saw a little bit of was in Cedarville, California. I mentioned I'm from Alturas, California. We're just on the other side of the mountain. We actually have to drive about 100 miles to the closest Walmart, and we are a population of about 1,000 on this side of the mountain. Cedarville, 500, and you can see we're in the very tip-top northeastern part of California. It's otherwise known as the state of Jefferson. There's a little bit of history there, but it's pretty remote. So when we are doing programs, we really want to look for what's missing. And we want to make sure that we're taking time to listen to what the needs are in a community. And especially since this community is so close to home for me, I kind of just had to take an extra moment to really think like, okay, maybe, I need to know what we need here to make this successful. So we ended up working with the school district, and they leased us the space for like $50 for the whole 2 weeks, which is amazing. The Surprise Valley Education Foundation paid for the camp and licensed the curriculum. We worked with the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia and also Siskiyou Works, which is sponsored a GSK science grant where we could have access to a science curriculum in engineering. And then we worked with Neuromaker, which is out of Boston, and that is a STEM company where we actually had the kids build a robotic hand for one of their engineering projects. So in week one, we got to just experiment. The first one was trying to make your own prosthetic hand, just trying to pick something up, like imagining that you didn't have hand mobility and you could only bend at the waist. And so the kids came up with amazing things. Then they had a program where they had to design a park that could sustain torrential rain and not flood. So that we did outside. And we also did electrical engineering. And during this first week, we also wrote the song with our CEO and founder, Pauly Z. And so he zoomed in from Los Angeles. So it was just really interesting to see how the kids just like immediately changed when they were talking to a rock star on Zoom. Week two was production week, and that's we had different pods for the campers where they could design the music video. They were the directors, they were the authors, they were the singers, and they were the choreographers. So they got to kind of see their own creativity come to life. And during that second week, we were also building the robotic hand, and then filming. So we had somebody come in with a drone and a 4K drone and shoot all the footage. So it was a pretty stunning process. The impact, I think, is it ripples. It has that butterfly effect that Carla was talking about, and it just it really met our goal of providing community access to a music program that they could feel really proud of and that they could share with the world. So thank you very much.
Our strategy should be not only to confront empire, but to lay siege to it, to deprive it of oxygen, to shame it, to mock it, with our art, our music, our literature, our stubbornness, our joy, our brilliance, our sheer relentlessness, and our ability to tell our own stories. Stories that are different from the ones we're being brainwashed to believe. Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, if I listen carefully, I can hear her breathing. And that's a quote from Arundhati Roy from her book, War Talk. For me, there were a lot of quiet days. As a poet, my natural habitat is in the middle of the forest, away from all humankind. The problem with that comfortable existence is that it passively allows someone else, someone with different priorities, to set the agenda. And what a mess that unabashedly urban empire has made of it. So last year, in the midst of human-induced climate change and pandemic, I decided things were too urgent for me to sit around writing nature poetry and just hope it was discovered. But what to do? The land itself provided the answer. Walking through the woods, where frost's cadences echoed through my head and rose up through the soles of my feet. We dance around in a ring and suppose, and the secret sits in the middle and knows. I realized then that poetry and the land write one another. The land is already speaking, and speaking on its own behalf. All I needed to do was find a way for others to hear it. Collecting poetry and creating an anthology made sense, except that people who buy nature poetry usually already love nature and poetry. And I wanted to do more than preach to the choir. And it occurred to me that there are entities whose work it is to protect our undeveloped land. Land trusts. Land trusts are very effective human defenders of land, and they all do it slightly differently. Some, like Northeast Wilderness, allow the land to decide what it will become. Their preserves are all about keeping it wild. Others, like Agrarian, work to keep farms working farms, not housing developments. Most land trusts do some version of keeping forests forests, while community land trusts help us figure out what it means to hold land in common. And all these things are good, and all are needed to maintain our rural way of life. I believe each land trust has a piece of the puzzle so as how to live more sustainably and in harmony with our lands. So all I needed to do was find a way to make poetry profitable for land trusts. My attempts to do this is called Writing the Land. Writing the Land pairs poets with land trust protected lands. They write poetry, which is then put in an anthology that can be sold by the land trusts and by the poets if they wish to support the work they do. Later this month, our first volume with 43 poets and 11 trusts will be published. 8 of those trusts are from New Hampshire, where 17 towns, over 82,000 people, are directly benefiting from the featured work of Southeast Land Trust, Monadnock Conservancy, Monadnock Community Land Trust, Upper Valley Land Trust, New Hampshire Audubon, New England Forestry Foundation, Agrarian Trust, and Northeast Wilderness Trust. In Massachusetts, we work with Valley Community Land Trust and Mount Grace Land Conservation Trust, and in Maine, Kennebec Estuary Land Trust, all of them serving rural areas. And thanks to them, the project is growing. For 2022, we have over 100 poets and 50 partners and are planning 4 books. Our main goal is to move our poetry and our message out of the woods and into the human world, to share the significance of land protection with a wider audience. Everyone should understand that forests and farms will not stay the places we love without a plan and without action. The average age of a farmer is 62, and of a forest landowner, 63. What the next generation does with that land severely affects our entire community. I believe this project works on a community-wide scale, supporting the missions of these wonderful nonprofits who work so hard to keep our rural way of life rural, but it also works on the level of a grassroots transformation. Each poet land trust pairing tells a story of that other world that Arundhati Roy and all of us hear breathing when we stand still. Together, these stories, rising up from the land, are the battle cry with which we lay siege to the empire. Thank you.
You all. That was a lot to digest. And such a great variety of ways of engaging in your communities. So I know if you have a question and you're here in the audience, you can raise your hand. And if you are on Socio, please put your questions in the chat and Jess will call those out. I have just a couple questions to get us started. And I think this one question, it would be great if you all had like a little something to add, but Jody Fried, who's up in the Northeast Kingdom, kind of coined this phrase of special sauce. So how would you answer this question? In your community, and I'm thinking about the folks, not only the participants, but also what you would consider the audience, perhaps. What is this special sauce in your community? What is that special thing in your community that makes your project work?
Existence about 15 years. So you've got this area of hidden twists and turns and stuff that's just starting to be exposed. And as people dig deeper into it, they're finding it shocking.
Henry, can you say that one more time? There's a delay.
I'm sorry. I would say that the secret sauce of Northwest Illinois and the driftless region is its uniqueness and its unknownness. It's shocking that 1.5 million visitors a year visit Galena, which in itself is its own story, but they're totally unaware that the fourth largest river on Earth is like 2 miles away. And then you throw the whole driftless region into the mix. It's a name that's only been in existence about 15 years. So this is all coming to light. And in a day and age where experience is king, it provides just knock your socks off views, vistas, and then you throw in the culture. It's just a totally cool aspect and environment.
I can go. So I think our special sauce here is, I guess, our remoteness, because we have to be, in many ways, self-sustaining as a community. We are in the middle of a high desert plateau that's surrounded by mountains on all sides. So it's gorgeous landscape. We have a wildlife refuge here. We have 5 government offices and 4 California California Highway Patrol, the Sheriff's Office. We have a lot of law enforcement. So, and we have a lot of people coming here to retire. So it's just an interesting formula for a lot of really educated people that are far away from anything else. So, we're able to sustain programs like community theater and an art center, and people just see the value of art, which I think is really powerful.
I would say our special sauce would be that our legacy in our Delta region. A lot of people have left that region to go be successful in the arts, and where we've been able to tap in is to remind them of where their roots are, and bringing people back to where the birthplace of some great things have happened. And so that is what we found for us.
I would say ours is basically the co-creation with the land and with one another. We're a community of creatives and farmers, which is, it's very broadly defined. We create food, homes, families, art, poetry, and just lives outside the ordinary. I still believe one of the strengths of rural life is that you can be eccentric and not get arrested.
But do give there a little gap after I stop speaking so they can switch over to you. There's like a 10-second delay. Okay, so my question is, how does your project challenge the status quo and invite and honor inclusion? So that can be around multi-generationalism or inclusive of races and cultures, socioeconomics, professions, politics, abilities, experiences. How does your project invite and honor inclusion?
Part, I think, is because of the finds that are here. There's a with the ruggedness of the land, if there's a, for lack of a better term, there's a down in their field or a off the beaten path, or once somebody finds you, they think, you know, your existence and what you're doing with your art studio, gallery, or what have you, is a one of a kind find. So it totally encapsulates them. They come in to see art. Then the relationship with the artist is a huge impact. And getting people out and about is just totally gets their senses. There's we're in a situation where we can be to the urban escapees, if you will, impress them in a manner that they want to be us. They want to be the artists that they're running to or seeing. As far as the inclusionary part is, we've had to do a lot of work over the 4 printings, enticing artists who didn't think they were good enough, or you know, along those lines, to go public with their art, to pull them out of their cocoon with the, if you will, and show their butterfly wings and show them to the world, get them involved with the world, which in turn has led to them being on television, which they, you know, never would have thought of, and those kind of neat relationships or connections, if you will.
Awesome. So I guess we could probably do the same order just so that our brains are happy. Being a special educator, inclusion and advocacy is just part of my personal brand and part of my passion. So I think just music is accessible to everybody. And I think one of the ways that it was embodied in this camp, we had one student who was nonverbal, and he had a Dynavox device. And so, you know, we took the time to kind of program some of the prompts and program some questions so he had access to inquire about the curriculum. And then in the final video, if you watch the video in the bridge, the Dynavox voice is featured with kind of this spatialized saying the words of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And then we had another student who was an adult student that joined us through Zoom. And so, you know, we kind of made that work just because she had some medical concerns about being in a large group of people. So I think just making music accessible to everybody is one of my passions, and one of the things that I think music really offers to everybody. And I had a great conversation with somebody yesterday about the other 80% in music programs. Like maybe 20% are in a band or choir or something like that. What about the other 80%? And I think that's where we can really turn our attention and make sure that everybody can have access to creative musicking.
For our inclusion, it really involved intergenerational. And we had 2 groups of people that were very young and very old. And the 2 did not interact with each other or in some ways see value in each other. And this project has brought those generationals together. And they have a shared space where they enjoy this together. We've also, in our rural community, we have pockets of small little towns around us, and those towns are very isolated. And if you are from a certain town, you don't necessarily go to another town. And the butterfly has opened the door for people to come and have their picture made in another town, which is something they would not have done because that wasn't their town. And so that's exciting to see people open up in that way, in a way that they haven't seen before, and to view their area as more than their corner, and that it involves everyone. And that's part of our goal, is to bring community just more than just your town. So, thank you.
Yeah, our inclusion efforts are just sort of ongoing. In terms of our recruitment, we focus on underrepresented voices and just sort of work networks, with the realization that, writing the land is never going to be a complete thing. And so it just gains strength and beauty and truth, the more people who are involved. And we just be sure that in our recruitment, we're focusing on people whose voices we don't have yet.
For that. And I have one more question before I open it up to some of the questions from the current audience and virtual audience. Something you could all answer. So you've, I guess, all touched that. Carla, you touched on some of how this has, your project has had ripples. You're actually, the message even of your mural is encouraging people to take action. And then, with your project, Dan, you're teaching kids how to write their own music. That's got to have a ripple. And for you, Henry, like encouraging artists to really stand up and claim their artistry. And then for you, Lise, also just that relationship between land trusts and artists. So I wonder what kind of lasting ripples, and maybe it's a surprise too, what are the surprising effects of your project, and maybe where your project might go as a ripple, meaning you would actually do this in another community, or a ripple that is not from you but was inspired by this project. Can you all speak to something on that?
I'd say my experience with this is, one is, we started out doing this, and it was, if you were to do connect the dots, we were on one, and then you saw two, and then on to three. I'd say right now, as the synergy and as the as it expands and flows, you're able to visualize the dots a lot further out. Now we might be able to see 10 or 20 dots out, as far as the planning of it. As far as the expansion, I think we're moving in a direction. Number one, it's starting to be where a significant amount of people, artists, are approaching us, versus where in the beginning we had to do, literally town hall meetings in every town in 2 counties to get this thing rolling. Now we don't so much have to do that anymore. And I think it's becoming, kind of like the Vogue thing. If you're an artist in this region, you want to participate in it. One, the exposure, and then economically from people hopping on board and doing the tour, has a big impact. And my vision is like next year we're picking up, I believe it's three counties in Wisconsin. That's a lot of real estate and interest in a much bigger art area like us. Like the area we have now. It's much more, many more artists than we're used to per capita, if you will. For the map. So that's been a big piece in direction. I see it expanding even further with that, and we're getting big entities that want to be involved. There's a Potosi Brewery, which used to be the biggest brewer in Wisconsin at one point in time, and now they're a not-for-profit brewery, but they're very big. They have a huge presence. They've approached us to be on it. We've actually have a big convent with an incredible art collection wanting to know if they could be part of us to show off their gallery. So we're getting that kind of snowball effect of more and more interest, and it's become exciting. I'd say the major ripple, if it got up to a national level where we could do something like that, I think it would be totally cool and have a monstrous impact on artists and the art economy, if you will. Impact the rural areas from, to coin a phrase, a bold, daring, first different direction.
That's awesome. So I guess one of the unexpected ripples that came from this camp was just yesterday we had our first session of a new co-op where we have creative movement, science, and music lessons. And that's, it was one of the ripples in this community because there was such a great response from doing the camp, and people wanted to keep that momentum going. And so it was an opportunity to build more bridges than walls. And kind of like what Carla was talking about, people from Cedarville now are coming over here. There's a lot more flow, coming over here for programming, and for people from Alturas, we don't really have our own farmers market, but Cedarville has an amazing one. So there's a lot more traffic there. And I think it's just opened a few doors and, opened some conversations. As far as the foundation is concerned, one of the ripples is that we're in a process of growth right now, and right now we're just taking some time to listen to what needs are. And so I would say anybody who is interested in a program, please reach out to me. Right now we're offering some subsidized and sponsored programs just so that we can kind of get out there and see what the needs are and who wants to be a writer.
Yeah, I'd say for us, the ripple effect, as I mentioned earlier, has really been just the participation of folks that you just didn't see. You didn't see them out and about. You didn't see them enjoying anything in the community, and we've also seen another community want to aspire to have something on one of their walls, so that people would come there and have. So, while this is not a new concept. I mean, urban communities have been doing this for a long time, but rural communities can feel very disconnected and don't realize that just because they're rural doesn't mean they can't have beautiful things and have good music and have access to those things. Because when those schools downsized, music and art was the thing that went away. And so that's what we're trying to keep, because the creative people didn't go away. They're still there, and those children are still there, and they still need those outlets. So as long as we're available, we're going to make that happen. So thank you.
I guess the ripples of this project can be kind of framed in three parts. The project itself has grown a lot, from 11 land trusts in this first book to 4 books with like 45 land trusts. So that's the project itself. But the poets, I've been getting good feedback from them in terms of forcing them into a conversation with a specific piece of land, where they write these poems together, has really, for some of them, changed their process, or given them another way to connect to their poetry. But my hope for the project is that that it gets a ripple effect in terms of acres protected. I mean, the whole idea is that land trusts can use what we produce as outreach and fundraising, so that eventually it supports the work that they do. And to just increase the amount of people who love nature in the abstract, in the poetry, to really recognize that 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 being active in their community about protecting land is really necessary right now. So
That gives us a lot to think about. These are really beautiful projects. Does anyone here in person have a question for our presenters? And if also, let me extend that also to the virtual world. And I'm also going to extend that to the 4 of you having questions of one another. Sometimes that's kind of a beautiful thing to hear you interact with one another. So just raise your hand if you have a question for someone else or for the other presenters. I'm going to, while you guys are thinking about that, I'm going to move on to a question that's always difficult for me. And I wonder if I could learn something from the 4 of you. And that's around measuring impact. There's qualitative ways of measuring impact, and there's quantitative ways of measuring impact. And I wonder, I know that Henry, you had spoken about that, like that was an intention of like how to measure impact. And that, of course, for folks that are in the world of grant writing, it has great impact, but it also validates just sort of the whole creative economy and how impactful we are, which can be a little bit elusive to other parts of our professional world. So I'm going to put it to you, to all of you, that question, just how you are measuring impact. Thank you.
That's, I would say, our biggest, that's our biggest challenge. I mean, obviously, we print 25,000 maps. We have a tri-state tourism actually implants our map on another 55,000 maps. So we have 80,000 maps out there, plus our web reach, because the map can be downloaded off the website and via social media. But the biggest, our challenge is you can walk into an artist, and more often than not, they want to be on board and just give us their money, which, I mean, that's really not the intent. I don't want people on just because you gave me the money and now your marketing problems are solved. I want to be able to demonstrate to them, hey, if you do this technique, if you do this, I'll back up. We did this. So the Scenic Art Loop is a 365-day-a-year map. Our monthly art drive is the first weekend of each month. And it gives the artists opportunities to get on tourism calendars 12 times a year. They don't even have to think of anything. They just have to say they're included in our map. We already laid that out. But the point is to demonstrate to them, hey, this month I did this and I picked up 10 customers. Or the Scenic Art Loop did a promo and we had 100 people go around. I could walk around, I could just say that, but I cannot demonstrate that in a foundational manner. So we're looking at potentially, and I hate the terminology until we come up with a better way, but a pseudo year-long poker run, if you will, where we can incorporate QR codes into it and have it done electronically, where we can say, hey, this year we had 500 people do the scenic art loop, and they visited this studio where they would have a scan bar or something like that. That's kind of the direction we're going in. We can't figure out how to manage that. So if anybody has any insight, that would be helpful. The result of the poker run would be we would do a raffle. Every artist would donate something, and there'd be a raffle at the end of the year. So if the tourist, if you will, visited 20 studios, they would get 20 chances to be in this raffle. We're trying to work on something like that. But then the other side of the fence is this is all, for the most part, volunteer hours. We can only, pull so much stuff out of our brain on a weekly basis, if you will. So that's kind of our situation, our dilemma. We do share feedback when people comment about it, and I could, talk about people that have been in my studio, but actually I would love to be able to physically show the artist, hey, this many people were around, and demonstrate in that kind of a manner.
Yeah, I guess for us, we're also in a phase of trying to develop our data collection and how to really measure impact. One of the things that we found really successful that can get both qualitative and quantitative data is a simple Google form, because we can get that qualitative data and have some people's experiences, what can be improved, what worked well, what didn't work well. So we usually do a pre and a post survey so that we can track movement. And then part of the qualitative data or the quantitative data for us is just number of communities and students impacted. And I think it's really hard to go much beyond that, when we're tracking the impact of creating music, other than just who's listened to the music, how many songs did you write, how many YouTube views do they have, whatever. So it gets really complicated, but I think it's one of those things that the more qualitative data I think we have is usually a bit more powerful when we're writing grants and trying to describe the impact. So it's not just us talking about it, it's people who have been impacted saying, hey, this is what this did in my life.
For us, well, my background is in grants, so this type of measurement means something to me in real time. But so how we measure this and how we continue to measure it is actually on social media, because everybody who takes their picture in front of this butterfly, who commits to being the difference, we've just made it a social media moment for us, and so we track it that way. Since it's a do it when you want to do it kind of thing, and it's not an actual program for people to come participate in, that was the closest thing we could come to as far as getting quantitative numbers on how many people have interacted. And of course, not everybody who's had their picture made or been involved in it actually posted on social media. So, I mean, the numbers are not as high as they probably are in reality, but we have far more numbers than we ever anticipated. So that's how we are tracking that project. And of course the quality, which is from feedback from the community and everybody who interacts with us.
We have, of course, qualitative data from the poets. I'm always asking for their feedback, and I do hope that the land trusts are keeping track of the impact on their end, but I don't have access to those numbers. So basically, in terms of quantitative data, for me, it would be the number of partners that we attract, the number of poets that we attract, and the number of books that we produce, and how popular those books are with the land trusts. Are they using them? Are they useful to them?
Thank you for that. A lot of good ideas there, and it does take many different streams of data to sort of paint the picture of impact. So I think that is the reality. Oh, good. We have some questions in the room. Yeah. Can I, do you want to take the mic or step up there? That would be great so we can hear. That way they can hear your question as well. Thanks.
It's too short for me. I'll just do this. So the question is for any or all of the participants and also you. In these projects, every time anyone undertakes a project of this scope, you learn at least one thing that you really wish you knew at the beginning. And I'm wondering if anyone would be willing to share those lessons they learned.
I think for myself, the one thing that I would want to know in the beginning of projects, which I think almost is impossible, is how deep a dive I'm going to go in. So we start with one little idea, and the nature of ideas is they start to spread and spoke. My husband calls me like the center of a spoked wheel. And so I've got many arms going in many directions. And that's part of the power of the project, is when it has so many spokes, when it connects to so many different organizations. And so I don't know, maybe that's just being able to project into the future how much support I need in order to hold up all of those different spokes. I would say that's a little bit hard. I'm going to turn to our virtual folks now, our storytellers.
And everything you've said, I'd say the other piece is when I got into this, one, I had no idea what I was getting into. Two, that I already had an idea that artists would be like herding cats. And then managing the drama and the ego. Actually, we do a monthly meeting, or did do a monthly meeting until current situations. And we actually had a 3-foot square sign that we put outside the door to check your ego at the door. And then the other piece, I may have lost my thought. The need for the marketing and business skills, particularly the marketing. I ran into a lot of I just make my stuff, and someday somebody will come by and buy it, and this is just how it goes. Versus to get them to understand marketing, business, just simple business systems. Actually, that's what it turned into. I jumped into this wanting to do this monthly art drive that evolved into the Scenic Art Loop, but I couldn't get that going. I had to literally teach business systems every month for about 2 years, just to kind of get people to get them conjured and like, okay, this is the direction we need to go in. And we've reached a point now where more get it than don't. And based on the connections we have coming in for future participation, we may have turned that curve. But that was like rolling a snowball uphill for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, for us, I think the thing I really wish I would have known before I started was the difficulty of recording 35 campers individually. And the amount of time and preparation that takes, because we really didn't have a lot of time during the day, during the program. So I ended up having to work with parents to say like, hey, can I keep Johnny a little, like 5 minutes after to record his part and stuff like that. So that kind of had implications on scheduling, future programs, just making sure we're realistic and gracious with the amount of time that we give to certain aspects of it, especially when we really want to put the students and as creative partners and really in the driver's seat. That empowerment, kind of like what Henry was talking about, takes a lot of education that you don't necessarily see coming. So, I think it's really valuable to have a clean slate when it comes to how long you think something is going to take in a program, imagining that everybody in the program might not know a single thing about it, or they might be experts, and you can kind of be flexible there and not berate a point and lose interest. So it's a slippery slope, but definitely gained awareness of that.
I would just like to share that someone spoke to me several years before this and said that projects move at the speed of trust. And I found that to be true. And things take a lot longer than you ever expected. And as time goes by, to get even more. And if you in this, think the time because that can make or break you. And if you're doing it in the Delta in July, it's hot. And so those are things to take into account from our project perspective. That I thought maybe I should have picked the spring. Maybe I should have picked a time when it was a little cooler and not so bad. But I will the next time.
I guess a few things about money, how much money it takes on the back end of things, software and that kind of stuff. Even if I'm working for free, everything that I do costs money. I think also be clearer about what people want for their help. There are probably strings, and it would be good to talk about those ahead of time. And finally, just to draw lines. I mean, yes, I will provide a free community Google Calendar. No, I will not teach you how to use Google. Things like that.
That's great. Okay, we're coming to the end, but we had one more question. Is it possible your question is kind of a quick answer from them, or about funding? Okay, good. I'm going to ask a question where they can answer it quickly because we were really running out of time. But it is such a good question. You want to see more? Oh, wonderful. So we have an audience member that's running the mixer on philanthropy, which we should all attend. We got some bright eyes right there. So could you guys each kind of really quickly just name off your funding sources for your project? And let's start with Henry again.
It's art is driven by participation, membership, and we have literally in the 2-county Illinois area spoken to every city council to see if they could support, give us some financial support to increase the amount of maps that we print. if you will, and that's it. We have not found grants that we could work with, and if we could, if there was a direction where we could kind of go and look at that, that would be cool.
Awesome. One of our first partnerships actually became one of our main funding sources with the Greater Susquehanna Valley United Way in Pennsylvania. And so they actually helped us start this music mentor program that is focused on youth mental health through a youth mental health initiative and grants that they already had in hand. And we are also grant funded. We've got a fundraiser every summer that is an online event, and we're thinking of making it a hybrid event this summer, where we work with big name talent, like we had Kiss and Nuno Betancourt and a whole bunch of other rock stars, creating kind of mix and match. We take like the drummer from this and the guitar player from that, and they would create these music videos that we put in our annual fundraiser. So fundraising events is right now our big source.
Our source was grassroots individual donors, and through several organization in the community that went out and solicited funds to support the project. So thank you.
I had to make a decision early on if we were going to be a 501c3 or a business. And my experience on boards made me not really want one. So I set up Nature Culture as a business. But it's run like a nonprofit in that my goal is to break even. So this is our first year, and we've met our goal. And for next year, we'll be giving the poets stipends, and I hope to increase that every year. But to answer your question, where does the money come from? It comes from stipends that the land trusts put in to be part of the project. It comes from selling books, and it comes from events that we run in order to support the poets.
Question. Thanks for all the questions. And thank you to the four of you so much for joining us. Really amazing work in your communities and really inspiring thought processes. I think you left us with a lot of great blueprints for other communities to work with. So I want to leave you with a couple of invitations. One is next Friday night in Brattleboro, Vermont. We have our gallery walk, and I invite you to the Artful Street stations if you're around Brattleboro. That's from 5 to 8. The other invitation is to put your email in the chat or give that to one of us. There is a rural creative placemaking conversation that's beginning, and a conversation group. And I facilitated a mixer yesterday with Rebecca Stone and she's working with Placemaking USA to continue that conversation. This is really rich. I could have asked you so many more questions. Thank you so much. I'm going to bring up Jess Gelter again. Thank you from Monadnock Arts Alive. Thank you to our tech folks. Thanks to Radically Rural. And thank you to the town of Keene.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Erin. You did a wonderful job today, keeping us all together and breathing through all the technology, which ran so smoothly. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to let you guys know what's coming up next. At lunchtime at 12:15, just half an hour from now, there's going to be a mixer about philanthropy in rural communities and how to engage donors. It's going to be great. It's down at Modest Man Brewery, which is on the left side of Main Street, 5 minutes down. And then also there is going to be a livability slam, which is just this really exciting format where people share brilliant ideas from their communities in a rapid fire format. And that'll be at the showroom theater, which is behind the big Colonial Theater on Main Street. So back in the parking lot behind it. It's a great new space for Keene, and we're really excited that we get to have some radically rural events there because it's a radically beautiful space. And then after that, time to close up, relax, connect with anybody you like. We've got some live music down at Brewbaker's Cafe again on Emerald Street. They're going to have an Irish night with an incredible folk music collector and heritage sharer. He not only plays incredible music, but he tells incredible stories. And there's also Yasso Jamaican Grill on the right side of Main Street. They're incredible, engaged business owners, and they're going to participate by hosting some reggae music this afternoon. So that's from 4 o'clock on, and it's going to be a blast and a great way to wind down after this incredible event. So I hope you join us. All right, that's where we're at. Hope you're all inspired. Let's go.